Andy, I am not by my nature a jealous man,
All right.
but I am jealous of you
Well,
at this moment.
it's the mustache, isn't it?
Particularly, I'm thinking about how recently you got given a special demo on Armored Core 6.
Yep, I have returned from the New World, laden with spices and info on Armored Core 6. Fires of Rubicon.
Let's see how far they can fly. On borrowed wings.
Luke, did you know that FromSoftware's almost first game was Armored Core?
Wow.
They made
Cool.
Kingsfield before that, but it's
Yeah.
before any Souls games.
Yeah.
So those are the Johnny-come-latelys, not Armored Core.
But like many people, I'm sure, watching this video, I am a relatively late convert to the work of development studio FromSoftware, with their Demons and Dark Soulses and the Elden Rings and the Bloodborns and the Sekiro.
They've made loads of Armored Cores, though.
They
The
have.
last one was in 2012, so it's been over 10 years.
I've played a little bit of the Armored Core that came out, one of the ones on the PlayStation 3, I can't even remember which one, and I had a good time, but found it quite baffling and overwhelming. But now, having played all of those Soulsborne games, I feel like baffling and overwhelming is my jam now.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited for like Armored Core 6. I'm beyond hyped, and you've actually seen it.
Yes.
What
So-
are your impressions?
Well, we got a demo of sort of 20 minutes from the game. We got a kind of intro to what the game is. We were given the 3 pillars talk. Would you like to know the 3 pillars?
I would love to know the 3 core pillars
The 3
of Armored
core
Core
pillars
6 gameplay.
of
Yes,
Armored
please.
Core 6. Pillar 1, massive 3D level design. Pillar 2,
Brilliant.
tactical combat.
Yeah.
Pillar 3, it's hard.
Let's talk about Pillar 1.
So yeah, the levels are huge.
Yeah.
And like much more vertical than like an Elden Ring or a
Yes,
Bloodborne
yes.
or a Dark Souls kind of level.
Brilliant.
Because you're a mech and
Yeah.
you can like jetpack around the place. You're kind of boosting all over. There are these big like vertical levels. The one they showed us, you were trying to take over like a mega structure. There are a bunch of different ways to do it, a lot of different like entry points and stuff. And
Yeah.
you can like fly and boost around, and that's governed by energy. So kind of imagine your stamina bar
Okay.
in a Souls game.
Yep.
Depending on your mech build, you'll have more stamina. So there might be like a super high window you can get in, but you can only get up there with a certain build with a certain amount of stamina.
Yeah.
Or you can go in the front door if you're like super heavily armored and you think you can take out all the security systems.
Brilliant.
Multiple routes based on your mobility level is the kind of the idea.
They have such incredible practice at level design.
Yeah.
That they can bring to bear on this. I'm really excited.
It's a very different sort of environments than you're used to seeing in Souls games. Very
Yeah.
like industrial.
Yes. Yes.
I guess like how you feel about mechs is going to be a lot of how you feel about this game, because it's like hardcore mech.
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. There's 2 sides to the mech aesthetic. One is the sort of almost infinite customization and like the min-maxing that comes from swapping out almost every single part of your mech. And the other part, and I've never been like super interested in that, but the other part is a big robot that shoots a big gun or has a big sword.
Yes.
And I've always felt very passionately about that. This thing is just a love letter to enormous metal things hitting each other and like firing rockets into each other, and
Yeah.
it's very hard not to get swept away in that, to be honest.
I think what FromSoftware does really well with their level design is that kind of sense of scale and like grandeur.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot more of that, but in a more kind of industrial, futuristic setting than you're used to seeing. So I think it's going to be something quite new for fans of their other games. So in terms of the combat, like you said, the mech personalization is a really big deal. So you've got all these different sections of the mech that you can sort of swap in and out. There's like the unit, the frame. You have 4 weapons which can be equipped to different slots. In the demo they showed us, they were fighting a large sort of, it looked like a piece of mining equipment or something. It had like big sort of like super hot rotating like rock crushers on it.
Amazing.
And they were struggling because they weren't mobile enough, so they went into the frame customization and they swapped out the legs for some like sportier legs. And then they were a lot
Dancers'
more
legs.
Yeah, long elegant dancers' legs. And they were able to sort of move around a lot more quickly. So
That's very cool. So you're not like tied to a build throughout the game. You can
no,
sort of-
I mean you can swap it up all the time without, as far as I can tell, without any kind of penalty. So every time you die, you return to a checkpoint rather than something like a bonfire or anything like that. But every time you go to a checkpoint, you can respec your assembly. So You can kind of swap things in and out pretty much at will all the time. It's like a
Brilliant.
really important part of gameplay. You can scan to sort of detect enemies ahead of you, so you can do a bit more like tactical, like planning. You sort of see what kind of enemies are ahead of you, and you can decide how to approach it. When you're actually in combat, there's a stagger meter on it. So it's kind of like the poise thing you get in Dark Souls, but it's a stagger thing. So if you fill the stagger meter, your enemy will then become staggered and vulnerable to attack. So it's about sort of landing hits in succession. The level they showed us had a vertical catapult on it, so you could like launch yourself into the sky and like get into sort of advantageous positions. But the real thing of combat is using the mobility stuff, so the jets to boost around the place, and you're doing like sideways jet dodging and like boosting towards people, and like you can do some really cool like taking people out with guns and stuff, and then there's one guy left and you'll like boost across the room towards him at impossible speed and just like jet punch him into the wall.
Brilliant.
It's really cool. In Elden Ring you don't really have to worry about a vertical axis so much, but now you're like everyone's everywhere. It's going to be really cool, I think.
Very cool. Tell me about hard.
Okay, well, yeah, the hard pillar. It was a long explanation in Japanese about the sense of accomplishment you get from overcoming difficulty, using strategy and planning to overcome tough enemies. And that's the hook in Elden Ring and in the Souls games, isn't it? It's not like this is hard for its own sake. It's like if you persevere and kind of adapt, you can overcome things that you thought were initially impossible. Yes,
because as we always say, it would be very, very easy for Elden Ring to be harder. They'd just add a few zeros to the enemy's health bar or something.
But a big crusher that crushes you.
I've simply add a crusher.
The crusher that flies in and crushes you.
They calibrate and balance the games quite carefully and artfully. So I think this is probably the way in, isn't it, for people like me who are recent converts to the work of FromSoftware. I think, to be honest, that difficulty and that sense of accomplishment is probably what it's going to have in common with the Souls games more than anything else.
Yeah.
I feel like this is going to be a game that you're going to have to meet on its own terms, and if you go in expecting Elden Ring but robots, you'll be sorely disappointed, because it is, as far as I can tell, an Armored Core game in the Armored Core tradition.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it did remind me a lot of an Elden Ring style game in the boss fight that they showed us. I was like, this feels very Elden Ring, because you're in a big arena with a kind of very visually impressive boss that's hard as nails. Yeah, big health bar that you're kind of making tiny little dents in, and you're like, this is going to be tough, but it's going to feel super good when I blow this guy up. Yeah. Okay. So some shared DNA there, but also like quite a lot different, just based on the genre and the kind of game that it is. I was broadly unaware of the game before the presentation, and I walked out of it going, man, I'm definitely going to play that. So yeah I'm excited for Armored Core.
And it's out really soon, right?
Yeah, it's coming out August 25th this year, so could well be the hit of the summer. Yeah,
the feel-good hit of the summer.
Feel-good hit of the summer.
It's a big metal crusher.
All right, well, thanks for watching. Let us know in the comments if you're excited for Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon. Yeah. And we'll see you next time on Outside Xtra.
Thanks.